Hey, my name is Shelby Kendrick, and this is my video for Intro to Sustainable Construction for my final project. First, I want to start off by saying after reading this book, I am a lot more knowledgeable of what sustainable building is and how to implement that into the workplace. I was very naive in what it was, and I thought, solar panels, like that's what energy conservation needs. Like you have to have solar panels, but there are a lot of ways to conserve energy on the back end without having to spend the whole money of solar panels. Although solar panels are a good option, there are a lot other cheaper ways to make a house sustainable and to be a green home. Chapter 7 talks about windows and doors. It's very important to make sure that these are being installed correctly. This is going to help eliminate water leaks and air infiltration. This can be done by detail flashing. There is 4 ways that air leaks through the windows, whether it be through the movement of air in between the space and the glass. It can be between the movable frame components, across the spacer material that separates the 2 layers, and through the glass itself, which happens a lot. So it's very important to make sure that when you're picking out windows and doors for your home, that you're choosing the ones that have the Energy Star label on them and see what their reviews are and stuff like that. Chapter 8 talks about plumbing. Copper plumbing used to be the most popular plumbing, but they have since moved to PEX pipe. PEX pipe is more flexible. It's not affected by acidic water, and it can be used for both hot and cold water supply. Another important thing to think about when thinking about the plumbing in a home is when choosing your water heater, to make sure that you're sizing it correctly. If you get a water heater that is too big for your home, it's going to result in the water sitting in the bottom of it, so it's not properly getting funneled through there, which is makes it more susceptible to corrosion. Chapter 9 talks about heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. It's important to make sure that your HVAC system is a system designed as part of the house and not an afterthought. It needs to be included in the whole process of the house, and make sure that it's properly fitted for the amount of home you have, for the certain type of weather environment you're living in and stuff like that. Another important practice is to make sure that you run your ducts through the insulated part of the house. A lot of times you see your HVAC system ductwork being ran through attics, which is not insulated, so therefore you're having your coldest air run through the hottest part of your house, or vice versa, you're having your hottest air run through the coldest part of your house, due to there not being insulation up there. So stuff like moisture, which can cause mold and stuff like that, will happen. Another thing to think about is the ventilation part of HVAC, which is a lot of times overlooked. One thing to make sure that your house is properly ventilated is to install fans in the bathrooms and kitchens to make sure that the air is ventilating and cycling through the house properly. Chapter 10 goes into speak about electrical. When thinking about electrical, a lot of people want a lot of lights in their house. So if you take into mind that lower consumption means lower operating costs, then you'll really achieve the mindset of a green built house. So by saying that, you can have less light fixtures in your house, and if you're following a green building standard, you've already taken into consideration how many windows you're going to have in your house, what your certain placement of your house is going to be, and how that can play into having less light fixtures, which in turn means less electrical. Another thing to make sure that you have lower consumption costs is installing dimmers and motion sensors on your lights, so you can use less energy that way. And it also, there's multiple types of lower choice light bulbs that you can use that actually last longer than your typical fluorescent light bulb. Chapter 11 talks about insulation, which, if you ask me, is the most important thing in building a comfortable home for your client. Insulation is very difficult to alter after the fact, so it's very important that you get it done right on the first time and take all things into consideration. Insulation is rated on an R value scale, so the U.S. Department of Energy will give you a amount that your house should be insulated at, and it's important to take that at a minimum and not as like that's all it has to be. You should think of it as like, this is the minimum amount that I have to insulate this home, and you should really go way above that to make sure that you're properly insulating a home for your customers. Another good practice is to use insulation that fills the whole wall cavity. One type like this would be like a spray foam insulation. You're covering every part of that wall, so you're not going to have any spaces for moisture to get in or anything, cold air and stuff like that to escape or get in. Chapter 12 talks about siding and decking. When you're thinking about siding, it is the first weather defense when portraying your home. So it's important to choose one based on your local weather patterns. There's a lot of different options, whether it be vinyl siding, stucco, concrete. There's tons of ones you can choose from, but it's important that you take all your local weather conditions into effect when choosing this for your home. Vinyl siding is a cheaper option, but it has a lot of maintenance, especially in areas with a colder environment, because it's going to crack and have to be replaced a whole lot more. Chapter 13 talks about solar energy. This is the heart of sustainable building. Like I said, a lot of people think of solar panels when they're thinking of green building, and it is very expensive to install solar panels into your house or solar energy. So a good practice to take is to go ahead and pre-wire your house for that if the cost up front is too much, and then later you can come in and add those solar panels. Chapter 14 talks about indoor air quality, which starts with proper ventilation. So this goes back to the HVAC thing. Ventilation oftentimes gets looked over, so it's important to include that in the final, draft of your house. Another good practice is to install carbon monoxide detectors, and if you feel like there's anything in question in your home that might not be sitting right, or you might have questions about, hire a professional to come in and test your home. Chapter 15 talks about interior finishes, and in my mindset, this is where people tend to stray away from green building because they see something and they want their home to look a certain way, so they choose products based on what they want it to look like rather than the sustainable part of it. Some key considerations to take when looking into interior finishes for your home is the toxicity level, the durability of it, how resource conservation and sustainability. Another good practice is to use recycled and refurbished products. Chapter 16 talks about landscaping. When you think about landscaping, you don't really think about sustainable building, but there are a lot of good practices to take into consideration when choosing the landscaping for your home. Trees, having big trees around your home will lower the temperature outside and produce shade on top of your home, therefore lowering the cost of your air conditioning bill, so you can save money there. Another good practice is to survey the area to see what plants are naturally growing already before construction, and then implementing those back into your landscaping pattern. They already grow there naturally, plus you're keeping the integrity of what's already being grown there and everything else. I know that was a fast example of what this have been, but I have learned a lot over this semester, and I'm excited to implement these into the work environment. Thank you so much.